Hey guys, welcome to the Nic and Joe podcast, the show where we talk gaming news, online culture, and living in our modern tech-obsessed society. Each week, we cover topics ranging from digital ethics to finding acceptance and understanding on the internet. We tackle hard topics, ask tough questions, and try to get the conversation started on some of life's more difficult discussions. I'm your co-host, Nic, and I'm so happy that you're joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nic and Joe podcast. Nic, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. We're actually recording early today, so I'm still kind of waking up and I've got, an excitable puppy with me, but I'm doing really good. It's kind of a big day, obviously, for us here in America. So yeah, kind of just gonna be watching the polls a lot today. That's my daily plans.
Have you been voted are you going to vote in person or have you
I did.
already done?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Early voting. I was there. I mean, Snack Daddy and I were there like first week. So.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's pretty exciting. What do you think the outcome will be?
Oh God, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think no matter what happens, it's going to be a shit show. To be honest, I think that, I don't like getting too much into politics because I know people don't like to listen to it. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of drama with it, no matter what the outcome is. So, I'm not looking forward to. Actually, Snack Daddy worded it the best way. He said that this is where the real shit show starts. Like everybody thought before everything was crazy. Like this is where the craziness starts, and it does kind of feel that way. So yeah, anxious about it, but hopeful.
Yeah. From a outsider's perspective, it looks like, I think Biden is the bookie's favorite, but yeah. we know last time it meant nothing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'll win the popular vote. Oh yeah. But that doesn't matter. That's not how you do it.
Yeah, that's a concern. Well, so here's the thing. Even if Biden wins, which, I super hope, like I said, don't like getting into politics, but politics aside, I think Trump's just a shitty person in general. Like not even as a politician. He's just I don't like him as a person if we want to go non-political with it. But, I think even if Biden wins, that Trump's going to contest it, and it's going to be a whole drama thing. And we know that, and I live in North Carolina, so of course I know I have a lot of Trump followers. Like I have some Trump followers in my family and stuff. Yeah. And, the people who really like him tend to be fanatical about it. So I think that if he were to say this is wrong and they did this wrong and it was fraud and I got, whatever you want to call it, screwed out of my presidency or whatever. I do think that even if there was evidence to the contrary to show 100% Biden won, clean sweep, it would still be you'd still have those people who were diehard, oh no, Biden stole it. There was sketchy stuff going on. So I think no matter what happens, it's like I said, it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be. Rough.
I think we need, as we do in this country, I think you need an overhaul of your voting system, and we need it here as well, to be honest.
I agree. Sorry, sinus is still fall here. But yeah, no, I agree. Complete overhaul. So we'll see what happens. It's, I've seen some people on Twitter saying they aren't going to stream today because they're just anxiously watching. And I think us in America, we all are anxiously watching because it's kind of a big difference in, depending on what happens, it's going to really drastically affect our lives in very different ways. So weird day. But other than that, good.
Yeah, because it's kind of weird here because, again, you can win the popular vote here and not make it into parliament, although it's a bit more difficult here. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have to win by quite a clear. So you have to have a majority over the rest of the whole house, all the other parties. You have to have a majority here. Yeah. You have to have more than all the other parties combined. You can't take office on your own otherwise.
Gotcha.
So we do have that, but we also we vote, each region votes, each borough votes for their member of parliament. And then and then it's how many of those members of parliament win. That's what counts in the end. So overall, you could still have more people vote for a certain party and then not get in, which is weird as well, because we all we don't live under like different county and state laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in England, we live under all the same laws.
Yeah, it is. It's a really strange voting system. And I've had it explained to me before as to why it was implemented. But yeah, I do think we're ready for something new. I mean, how long has it been, you know?
Hundreds of years.
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah. Ready for something different, something better. Yeah. So
yeah. So what did you want to talk about this week, Nick?
Oh, this is an exciting topic for me because, you know, basically like die hard into women's rights and feminism and stuff like that. And this week we're talking about one that I've actually been watching this over a few years. I've watched this develop. I've kind of kept an eye on it. It's been a really fascinating topic to me. So we are talking about deep fakes. And if you don't know what deep fakes are, essentially, it's the ability to put somebody's face on a different body. At least that's how it's typically used. I mean, you could use it in a variety of ways, but that's the overall most widely used format for it. So we're going to talk about deep fakes and basically like women's ownership of their bodies, feeling any ownership or control over their bodies, people feeling entitled to somebody else's body and the right to see somebody else's body. So yeah, kind of a heavy topic.
Yeah, so I think how most people will have seen this probably is in those silly apps where you like somebody will put your face on a pop star or you know, a rock star or a film star or something like that. And obviously in that sense it's just meant as a bit of a joke and we're talking about celebrities, but there are people that are being a bit more sinister using these technologies, but we'll get into that. But so when you brought this up to me, Nick, and I had a look, I honestly didn't realize the size of the issue. Obviously, we've known for a long time about Photoshop and images being Photoshopped and making people look like other people on Photoshop. We've seen it for years, and they're getting very good at that. We know that, to the point where a picture is no longer evidence, right? But there's still experts that still seem to be able to decipher that and see whether it is real or fake. And for now, it seems that they can do that with the video, but then they're worried about the future. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, like just kind of a blanket idea of what's going on for people who are new to this subject. So the statistics I found are that 96% of deep fakes involve simulating porn of female celebrities without their consent. And when we say female celebrities, I just want to say that it's not, you know, you think of like Scarlett Johansson and Wonder Woman, I forgot her name, Gal Gadot. You think of that, but it's not just that. So right off the bat, I want to say that for research purposes, I did look into this. I wanted to see how realistic this stuff looked, how much of a threat it really was, right? Because if it looked kind of like, her research.
Okay.
But like, you want to know, like, is this actually something that could convince someone, or is it just kind of like, you know, like janky and crummy looking? And no, it looks really realistic. Like, this is certainly something that could be a threat to somebody's livelihood, to job interviews, future relationships, certainly something that people could be like, it seems like they did this. Now, obviously there are varying levels of believability depending on how much work somebody puts in.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that in order to create a deepfake, you have to have lots of images and footage of somebody's face, which is why this is predominantly, you know, female celebrities. So this is a big problem for streamers, obviously. And Pokimane, I have found deepfakes of Pokimane, several ASMR streamers, Belle Delphine. So a lot of like online personas, you know, being simulated in porn without their consent. So it's basically doubled over the last year. And I forget I feel like this is a recent article. So I think the current count might be about 14,678 deep fake videos across a number of streaming platforms and porn sites. That's a lot, you know, and I feel like
14,000. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I feel like it's not very talked about. This is something that a lot of people that I talk to in real life, in my life, don't even know exists. And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Well, when you told me, I can remember when I, back in the day when my friends would be illegally downloading games or music or whatever, which we don't condone on this show. Obviously, you should pay your artist. That they would offer, because this was a few years ago, these sites would be offering celebrity nudes, which were back then quite crude photoshops of just pictures. So it was quite obvious, but obviously the technology now, and you see people messing about on Snapchat or TikTok or whatever, and they look pretty. Some of their friends will put their face just to mess about on a celebrity, and it looks pretty good. It's like, hey, that's actually not bad. So imagine if somebody actually took some time, put into it, had hundreds of photos of every angle of somebody's face, because that's what they need to make it.
Yeah, and sometimes thousands.
More pictures that they
go pretty intense with it.
Yeah. Do you think that this could be less of an issue once everybody knows of this issue? Because there are people who might look at it and think, well, hey, she's doing porn now. And then the people that know, be like, well, hang on a minute. It looks really realistic, but, I've got to be wary.
That's an interesting one. Deep Trace Labs is, I guess, I don't want to call them a lab. They're like an operation, a website. I'm not entirely sure how you would describe them, but they are studying deep fakes and kind of, the uptick in them, what's happening, how to disprove them. And the unfortunate thing is, while you can disprove if a image has been photoshopped, you can do that with deep fakes too, but it's always kind of a step behind, right? There's always going to be people who can find workarounds to the disproving technology. There's always going to be, just ways around that. So the big problem is confirmation bias, where you're likely to believe what you see if it confirms what you already believe, even if you find out it's false. So the consensus from the lab that's investigating this is that having fact-checking resources at your disposal doesn't matter if people don't care about the facts, and it's going to become an even greater problem if people are looking at what they believe to be real. So even if you have incredible detection technology that says it's falsified, that it's manipulated, it's not necessarily going to have any impact. And that sounds kind of nuts, right? It's like, well, obviously you can prove it. But I mean, I feel like after 2020, none of us are going to have a hard time believing, oh yeah, people will believe what they want to believe. I mean, they just will. And so I feel like in the current climate too, deepfakes are a particular problem because let's say a woman has a job interview and it's been proved that it's falsified. They might believe it's falsified, and maybe they'll say, okay, we'll still hire her. They might say, well, other people might not believe it's falsified, and we have clients we have to work with. And, there's just so many factors going in. It's not just like one person's opinion or belief on whether or not it's falsified or not. It's other people as well. And this includes relationships. Like, let's say that it's your mother-in-law doesn't believe it's falsified, even though your husband does, there's so much that goes into it. So even if we have the technology to prove that it's false, it's, not useless, but not fail-safe.
That's the thing as well, because obviously, especially with what's gone on in this current climate, with all the fake news and some people believing, that the virus doesn't even exist, or that it's government control or whatever, it could send people either way. They could either be like, oh hey, I follow that, like that's happened, or they could be completely skeptical at the same time. But like you say, they could be skeptical but still worry about the impact on other people.
Yeah. And also, they could say, oh, yeah, that looks real, but it could be a deep fake, right? Like, it could go either way. You could see something that's fake and believe it's real, or something that's real and believe it's fake. And we actually have had, even though the vast majority of this is used for like revenge porn or non-consensual porn, there has been a fake viral video that makes Nancy Pelosi look drunk. And as of May 24th, 2019, Facebook would not take it down. I'm not sure if it has been taken down since then, but I mean, it has the ability to be used for much more than porn, even though it hasn't been yet. Now,
you see, because this is the other thing, because obviously it's kind of a new thing in the last sort of, well, it's been around a bit, but videos in particular, I think the thing is before, because they were so obviously fake that it wasn't really a problem. But now that they're becoming real, now they're becoming realistic. Is there any particular law? And what is the legislation, if there is a law about? Is it just simply that you're using someone else's picture? Is that the only problem?
The laws around it are interesting. I mean, it kind of falls into cyberbullying territory, where the laws are not great. And I actually do have a really good kind of example story of that. But real quick, as far as politics go, the reason why people aren't too concerned with politics at the moment, the Deep Trace Labs, the reason they aren't concerned with it is that as it stands, politicians already get so much flack. Like, we've seen, for example, Trump be able to say something and then other people won't believe he said it, even with video evidence. So it seems that deep fakes right now, when it comes to politics, like aren't super useful because, again, I mean, people will believe what they want to believe. But there was a woman who, I believe at the age of 17 as well, which in my country is not legal. But I think, if I remember correctly, she was in New Zealand. But at the age of 17, she was a victim of deep fakes. And, as women, we're told, don't send nudes and you'll be safe. Don't, record videos and you'll be safe. We're told all of these things. Yeah. And that's just not true anymore, No. So we're told, like, we have all of these freedoms, but then it's don't wear the wrong thing, don't do the wrong thing, don't send the wrong thing, don't say the wrong thing. And even now with just streaming, with, for example, Pokimane, she has not put any nude photos out there, and just streaming, just by existing, she has now been a victim of deep fake. And so there was this one woman, and she was, I believe, in law school as well, which you can imagine if you're in law school, this is a big deal, right? This isn't like just some waitressing career or something, or like bartending career. Like, this is being a lawyer.
Yeah. It could have serious repercussions for her career, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very serious repercussions. She was 17 when she realized a selfie from her social media account had been doctored into sexually explicit pornography, an experience she likened to someone stripping your dignity and your humanity. It violates personal privacy and dignity and is a form of abuse and should be labeled as such. So a attorney general had said that it's degrading and a dehumanizing practice, which absolutely right.
Agreed.
And the interesting thing about that is, some people will say it's just fantasy, it's just this, it's just that. But you're having access to somebody's body when they told you not to. And I get that it's not quite their body, but it's part of it is the important part, right? Because if it was about more than that person's persona and their face, then why even do it? So, she said new laws are being introduced to make it a criminal offense to distribute non-consensual intimate images, punishable by jail terms of 18 months to 3 years and fines up to $18,000. But she also said that at now 23, so she was 17 and she's 23 now, even 5 years on, it's impossible to have the content removed from the internet. And she never believes it will truly be removed from the internet. That's out there.
I mean, once somebody's got it, and ripped it from whichever site. I mean, you can take it off the site; it's still not gone. It doesn't matter. You can you can get videos taken off Facebook; they're still not gone because it's too late. People have already ripped it, recorded it, and then distributed themselves. We know Reddit's so easy to share things without it being monitored. Like, it's actually ridiculous, the freedom that people have on Reddit. Now, Reddit is, on the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot of people know about it. There's a lot of people using it. But if you're talking about the general population, a lot of people don't really know or use it.
It's
absolutely. A small percentage of the population. And I feel like when you go on there, I think they kind of like it that way because nobody's really shining a torch on it and saying, well, hang on a minute, there's loads of dodgy shit going on here. I know, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was, well, we know it's being used for bad things because we've always hit Reddit when we've been researching terrible things or groups or people who have certain ideologies. And nothing's happening about it, though.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
not really. I mean, they've banned a few of the problematic subreddits, but it took a long time and it took them doing a lot of stuff. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is bad, we're going to ban it. It's like, okay, now we kind of have to because this has been going on for so long and it's getting so bad. I mean, the incel subreddit, it wasn't banned for a very long time, and yet they celebrate and basically worship, or at least some do, somebody who killed women and went out and like to a sorority house and like slaughtered women. And I mean, the fact that that wasn't getting shut down, right? It's kind of sketchy.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Very sketchy. And how easy is it to put up another subreddit under a different alias?
Yeah, which they did, you know, and now I think it's Incels Without Hate, but I mean, who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
And then I did discover that there was a website off of Reddit that, I mean, they could post whatever they want, right? Like they own that website. So who's monitoring that? How does that get shut down? It's just, the internet is such a gray area. So even if there are laws, and then the laws vary by state, they vary by country, and who enforces them and how are they getting enforced? It's difficult. It's very difficult. And honestly, in the vast majority of cases, nothing's going to happen. So
yeah, it's one of the biggest problems with the internet is international laws.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember a few years ago, when MP3 downloading was huge, they started selling like music tracks from Russia. Yeah. Completely legally for like 10 cents rather than like $1, you know, a track. Yeah. Or $1.20 or whatever. They were selling for 10 cents or $1, and they would get. I don't know what happened in the end. I didn't really follow it, but then we started to get streaming services. So I guess, and people stopped downloading music anyway. I guess because a lot of people just use streaming services now anyway because it's a lot less hassle. Yeah. But yeah, if you are doing it in another country, I mean, it was still illegal. Well, it was a grey area for a bit, and then, like in the UK, it was confirmed that you'd be breaking the law here. Mm-hmm. But in them allowing you to do it on their side, they were doing absolutely nothing wrong. And then slowly but surely, all the ISPs blocked them. But obviously, we know you can get around that with a VPN. So easily done.
Yeah, and even to deal with issues of music being used illegally, record companies have to probably pay lawyers a lot of money, right? Like it costs a lot. The average person doesn't have that money. And the woman who was a victim of this, she's going to law school, but probably in debt from law school, probably has a lot of student loans. I mean, these aren't people who have millions of dollars to shell out to make sure that this is wiped as much as it can be. And this problem of women not consenting to being seen naked, whether it's a deep fake or real, has been going on for a long time. There was, what was it? That big leak of celebrity nude photos that people had hacked celebrity phones. I forget the fappening. The fappening. Yeah, there was that. And the fascinating thing is that with the fappening, it was constantly being distributed, right? Like people were trying to take it down. It was constantly being distributed. Well, Captain America, I believe. Gosh, what was it? Chris Evans. He had Evie's doing the borks. He had a leaked photo of, his junk, which he leaked himself on accident by screen recording his phone. And the fascinating thing is the difference in which it was handled. So people were obviously some people were distributing it, but the vast majority of people, there wasn't that same, the energy was very different. There wasn't like that victim shaming. There was a lot of support. There was a lot of don't share this. Completely different. And, you could look at that two ways. Maybe it's a sign of the times changing. And that's the hope, but more likely it's a gender difference. And that really sucks, more likely if something were to happen to a woman after, that incident with Chris Evans, she would still be treated really shitty. It would still be overwhelmingly shared.
Without a doubt.
It's a big gender problem. And I know a lot of people, hate kind of making those divides of gender and race. But unfortunately, when it affects one population so much more severely. You have to.
Exactly.
So, otherwise it's just derailing the conversation and nothing really gets done. So it's a tricky territory. But then, of course, you do have people who want to talk, more about the political side. But like I said, it hasn't really been used for that. And the fascinating thing is, the woman who was a victim of this, she did actually speak out, right? Because a lot of people would say, why not speak out? Why not say like it's fake and get on the news and stuff like that? And she did. And it actually got worse for her after that. Yeah. People were obviously using like her face from her interviews and her news stories and making more deep fake porn. And it just got so much worse. And then on top of having this porn of her, now she had a bunch of trolls saying she was fat and ugly and whatever they could throw at her. So it actually got much worse. Now, obviously she's doing something incredible and she's still speaking out and she's not going to let them win. But at the time she said she'd never had a boyfriend. She didn't think she had any enemies. She'd never taken, let alone shared any nude photos. It was a complete shock. I had no idea who'd done this. And again, we're told, you do the right things and you're protecting yourself. And that's not the case at all, and it feels almost like this unentitlement to our own bodies and other people having entitlement to it, not really having ownership of your own body, somebody else having that ownership or that right to your body. And it sucks.
Did you have I know in the UK we had maybe 3 or 4 or even 5 years ago now, we had like a government campaign on TV adverts, commercials that was like basically, I think it was sort of aimed at teenage girls. But one of the main messages was about not, be careful sharing pictures of your body and who you're sharing it with. So obviously, if the government was spending money, to try and raise awareness of that and warn people of the dangers, then it must be a huge problem.
Yeah. Well, revenge porn websites, they're pretty popular, surprisingly. Yeah,
like ransoms and all sorts of stuff. Do you think as well, if men, because this is, like you say, it is primarily, I'm sure there are some men that have been done just the same, but there must be very few. Mm-hmm. Do you think that if they put the face on a male porn star, then that man might even be celebrated by some other men, maybe even some other women? Do you think that might happen? Because again, it goes back to that. If you like having sex and you're a woman, then you're called a slut, right? By the mainstream society.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and if you're a guy and you like having sex, then you're just a player.
That's a good point, because if you think of, Evie once picked up again, if you think of like back to high school, there's the popular girl in class. If you can doctor a really good video of just whoever you are having sex with the popular girl in class, like I could see how that could become, way to go. And then she's slut shamed and basically, put the red letter on. I could absolutely see that happening. Funny story though about men's photos being doctored, just because I do actually think this is hilarious. So the women's photos, it's really easy to doctor. With the men's photos, they put them through this app that was doctoring the women's photos. And instead of making the men nude, it basically like it did make them nude, but for example, they wouldn't have like their penis out. Like it would put boobs on where their penis was. Like it would try and fill in. Yeah, it would try and like guess and fill in like, oh, well, underneath underwear, this is what belongs there. It was actually very hilarious. So, and that's just because it hasn't been like the AI, I guess, hasn't been trained for men at all. But very interesting. And also it's not released to be anything. It's not like, everyone's going to know that is a bullshit photo, right? Because it just doesn't look right at all. Yeah. A lot of scope for some really terrible things happening. And again, in school, because we know like bullying is rife all through workplaces as well. But we know it's really much, it goes on a lot. And schools, obviously, the first place, and where pretty much there won't be, or there must be very few people who at some point didn't receive some form of bullying at school. Like everybody, pretty much everyone at some point. Some people obviously much more intensely than others, but everybody's felt it in some way at school.
And you just think, obviously, we know there's a problem with social media anyway, where it continues and they can't get away from it. And sadly, we've seen very young teenagers taking their own life simply because of this online bullying, because home wasn't even safe anymore, because they could still receive messages, they could still, they're still getting communications from bullies. Mm-hmm. And then, this could just take it that bit further. And if it gets into schools, obviously, if it becomes the point where it's so easy to do, or so much easier than it is now to do, mm-hmm. Where a 14, 15-year-old kid could pick it up and just do it to somebody else in school. Yeah. And that's a real mess as well, because the kids, aren't even old enough to be watching that kind of content or be involved in that kind of content. Not that they are involved. Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's such a strange thing, because people will see it, and then in their head it'll be like, even if they know it's a fake, it's just like, it's still there. It still looks real, even if they know it's a fake. And that, especially in a young mind as well, that's not fully developed yet, that could be pretty confusing, even if they know, because being a teenager is a confusing time anyway, right?
Absolutely.
And like you say, it does bring up that confusion. And all it takes is one kid to say, well, this girl's a slut. I saw her on this video with, 7 guys, whatever. And
it doesn't just, it's not just about bullying. It shapes their mind too, right? Like when you're in that developmental stage, if you get into the mindset of, oh, she's a slut, right? Like that's how you get into woman hating, woman shaming, not treating women right, like that's such an important developmental stage. And that's where you're forming a lot of your beliefs. And so having this negative view of women, or having this idea that it's okay to do that, or that, she somehow is to blame for it. I could see that as being harmful long-term over an entire life, not just for women, but for men and for men's mindsets.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember growing up at school, and, any girl who had any sexual encounter outside of somebody, who wasn't necessarily their partner, was a slut. Well, we'd say slag in England. Yeah. More than slut. But it's just as bad. In fact, it's probably worse. It's probably a worse word for people. Nobody likes being called a slag. Yeah. Like at all. Not even in a submissive role. Nobody likes being called a slag. It's interesting how a lot of things have changed since then, but that still seems to be the same. Like that doesn't seem to change in the general population. Like a girl goes out and have a good time, is single, whatever, then she has sex with somebody she's not in a relationship, then she just is a slut, and that's that. Yeah. That's people's general perception, and that doesn't seem to have changed. But I don't really know why, when so many things have changed with regards to other stuff in gender equality, and that just simply hasn't changed. Is it this natural sort of, prehistoric sort of feeling of men to sort of take ownership over women? Is that why it is? And if if a woman's out of that control, that's where a lot of natural instincts take over, and people think, well, she's just a slut. She can't be trusted. She's a slut because obviously, hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was just, the men were in charge, and you did, well, not even that long ago, to be fair, like 50, 60 years ago, to be fair. But like it comes from our natural instinct. The men were in charge, and the women were to be kept in line. And I guess it must just stem from that. So when women started getting more equal rights and going out and doing what they wanted, and, obviously that in some people, especially perhaps if they're quite bitter about their own relationships as well, or their lack of relationships, then it's going to be like, well, they're a slut, because they're out of control and out of their control, and they would never be able to control that person.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. So going back to, kind of cultural standards, there is I think it might be on like an island or something, but there is a society where women, like it's a matriarchal society, it's not patriarchal, and women will have men come like stay the night and then like sleep with them and then kick them out. And it's like a woman has many, many partners. Women are the ones who kind of rule the roost. So from a biological standpoint, you know, I don't know that it's completely biological. My thought process is that it's pushback, which I think is also what's happening with race right now. So you have women and people of color getting rights, and then you're going to have pushback. You're going to have, because obviously it's not everyone, right? You know, some people don't even know deep fakes exist, but you're going to have that minority, that outspoken minority that's pissed, that feels like they have the right to control whoever, because historically they've had a right to control whoever, and it makes sense, or for religious reasons. You know, there are some religions that believe that males are superior to females, and that women basically aren't even people. And I think you're getting that minority that's pushing back really hard. So the further that women and people of color come, the more pushback you're actually going to see. I've heard it likened to, what are those little clackers where you pull the ball and it like hits it and kind of like bounces back and forth?
We just used to call them clackers, I'm pretty sure.
Well, there we go. We're going to call them clackers then. That's what I called them. I know they have like probably a term, but we're going to call them clackers. But it's kind of like the clackers, right? Like you pull one way, you know, whereas more rights, you let it go, and then there's more oppression. And it takes a while to settle back in. And I mean, realistically, you're right. It hasn't been that long. And even now you could say, I mean, overwhelmingly, like, men are still very much in charge. They're still you know, when it comes to like household chores and having a job as well as child rearing. And I mean, just like government, everything, right? Men are still very, very much in charge. So there's this push for more equality, but then the pushback as well. So I think, you know, it's definitely not all men, for sure. There are really wonderful, great men, but you're hearing that minority because, again, they're the ones who are kind of like rocking the boat and putting shitty things like deep fakes out there.
Yeah, they're the ones that are upset. So they're the ones that are kicking up a fuss.
Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you think a producer of one of these deep fakes sets out? What are they setting out to achieve? You know, are they? Is it a multitude of things?
Oh, definitely.
And is it always because of something that's within?
Yeah, I do think it's certainly something that's within, even if it has been culturally ingrained to them, this sense of ownership or the sense of being, you know, a male and having the right to certain things or being privileged. I still think it's an internalized thing, right? Like all of our men have grown up in the same society, and not all of our men turn out to be crappy, right? Yeah. Like, so it's certainly an internal thing. You know, I know plenty of men who would never think to do such a thing. So I do think it's a lot of that. I think it goes back to, you know, a lot of things, kind of the same incel mindset, right? Hating women, obviously. Like you can't really have much respect for women, and probably do hate women or the woman that you're doing that to if you're willing to basically say, I don't care if you consent, this is what we're doing, right? Yeah. So like you can't really respect women with that. I think it's the sense of entitlement, maybe some bitterness, right? Like let's say if you're in, for example, Pokimane again. If you're in Pokimane's channel, you donate a lot, you know, but you're fucking creepy and she bans you, you know, there's that that rage, you know, and you're going to make maybe deep fakes or something. Yeah. So it's a lot of things. It's entitlement. It's lack of respect. It's hate in some cases, especially with revenge porn and revenge deep fakes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really weird. It goes back to the troll psychology as well. And
oh yeah.
I find it incredibly interesting from that perspective. We normally know what revenge porn is about, and again, that's from inside because they've got. Usually, it will be because they are no longer with that person and they're bitter about it, and they want to see, you know, they want to put anybody else they possibly can off by making out she's a slut or. But do you think there'll come a point where? We just become so cautious about sending anyone anything all the time that this stops? Or, you know, are we going to get software detection that is on point with discovering whether this is fake or not? And if we do people even, like you say, do people even want to believe it even when they're being told it's fake?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the scariest thing. It's like we obviously we'll get better technology, and that will help with stuff like some media outlets and stuff like that. But because then they'll get in trouble if they know for certain it's not real. But they do here. I don't know about the States. I know you could get away with writing a lot more in the States.
Yeah.
There's quite reasonably strict slander laws here. So you can't just write what you want about somebody. It has to be true.
Yeah.
Because if it's proven not to be and they've suffered because of it, then no, papers get sued here.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I think in the States, it's much more difficult.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like the States is kind of wishy-washy on a lot of things. And I do think that in terms of cyberbullying, we're probably, you know, like we are in terms of several things at this point, going to be behind.
What was the newspaper / magazine? Is it called the Enquirer?
We do have one called the Enquirer, yeah.
Is that like, one of them was like a celebrity sort of gossip paper?
Ooh, we have a lot of those. In fact, if you go to a grocery store and you check out, I mean, there's just several celebrity gossip little like magazines right beside checkout.
From what I remember when I lived in the States, it was just like, I remember my parents telling me this is basically like just made up. Yeah. Like a lot of it's just completely fabricated. Yeah. Like it's just like a storybook. And they're allowed to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it goes down to your freedom of speech, right? In the Constitution. I guess that's where it comes from and the reason why. But here, if the papers did that, especially with celebrity, they'd be sued straight away. Yeah. Which is interesting because you can sue for a lot of things in America. Yeah. Except for your identity, right? Except for, you know, your ability to exist. And it's actually funny because, so I'm going to butcher the name, Emily Ratajkowski. I'm going to say Emily R., you know, the model. She's very, very, very beautiful. Ratajkowski. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to call her Emily R. because I don't know if that's right. It sounds right. I'm going to go with that. But the fascinating thing, you know, you're talking about people being more cautious to put stuff out. Absolutely. Especially women, I think are going to be more cautious to put something out. Something really fascinating is she was actually sued for using a photo of herself on her Instagram. And so that's the weird territory that we're in over here. She used like it was, what did they call them? Paparazzi photo. There was the paparazzi photo that someone had taken of her. She saw it. She liked it. She put it on her own Instagram and then was sued for using the photo of herself on her Instagram. And that to me is nuts. So somebody can take your likeness, can take a photo of you, can do whatever they want, and you aren't allowed to use that photo. That's what's illegal. That's what's illegal, not them taking unsolicited photos of you. Yeah, so it's really just such a gray area. It was a strange story as well because there was also an artist, wasn't there, that had made artwork out of some of her images. Yeah. He made like art that was literally looked like a Instagram post, right? Yeah, it was. It was like a screenshot of an Instagram post, but he had posted a comment on it. So it was somebody else's. I mean, it was Emily's Instagram post. It was her photo. It was her caption. It was her hashtags. And below it, I guess it was like his username and his comment. Yeah. And he's selling these pieces for like $80,000. Yeah. Like, yeah. And more upwards, right? Yeah. Yeah. Some of them more, and he's like, and he can do that. Yeah. And if she wants one, she's got to pay. Yeah. Which she did. Yeah. At some point. Which is nuts. But like she takes the paparazzi photo and it's like, oh, you're going to get sued for that because that's our picture. We own that. The picture's of her. She can't even see her face on it. Mm-hmm. She's covering her face up with like flowers. Mm-hmm. It's just her legs you can see. I'm so ridiculous. So ridiculous. And it goes back to ownership, right? Like obviously freedom of speech is absolutely wonderful, but I feel like we've gone too far with if something is harmful, it gets protected under freedom of speech anyways. And I feel like that's really not cool. You know,
people, it seems like, don't even have ownership, especially women, don't even have ownership for their own bodies or their own photos or anything like that. I mean, that's when freedom of speech has gone too far. That's when it's harmful and it's cyberbullying and it's oppression. Yeah. And so, I'm a big believer in freedom of speech. I don't want that to go away. But yeah, we need laws. We need laws to protect people to be able to own their own image. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing as well. If it's going to be freedom of speech, if you take a photograph in public and post it, then it should be fair game. It should be there absolutely. For anybody. That's the freedom of it. You know, taking pictures under contract in a private studio is completely different, obviously. But you snap somebody in the street because, like, it's legal. It's legal to film or take photos in public here, anywhere, except if they are under 16.
Yeah.
Or you are taking you are trying to take pictures without people's knowledge. So if you're doing it candidly, so obviously if you were taking pictures in a bush of people, then that's not okay.
Yeah. And it's creepy. Don't do it. It's fucking weird.
But like the pictures here, once they're out, they're out. So if the paparazzi gets the photo, they get it to their paper. All the other papers can pile on it and get that photo, but it's too late. It's too late. They've already had the scoop. But that picture's then fair game. It can be used, and all media outlets can then use that so long as they cite the source. So our news channels, broadcasters can get a picture of any paper, hold it up, and say, "This is what's on today's paper. These are the pictures," but they've got to cite exactly where that picture's from. Yeah. So in that way, it's still like it's similar that you can just go and take unsolicited pictures of people in public, but then those pictures are then fair game. You wouldn't get sued here for then taking that picture. Yeah, where she got sued, I think it was like $150,000, and I don't know if she won or lost. I can't remember, but $150,000 for using an image of herself, which is absolutely nuts. And it brings up the question, how much of ourselves do we own? How much of our identity do we own? Facial recognition technology is something that we're going to have to face in the future, and that we have had to face some already. Cyberbullying, deep fakes. I mean, how much of ourselves do we really own? Do we really have a right to? And it's really fascinating to think about that, and it's only going to get worse. Do you think, I mean, now this is very hypothetical and Black Mirror. Do you think there'll be a point one day where we can augment our face how we want, and then you'll be buying identities? You don't like who you are? Oh, you can go and buy somebody's identity. Yeah. I could, who I could see that happening. What's the story? What do they look like? Again, it's really Black Mirror and sort of out there, but. So it sounds Black Mirror. But interestingly enough, I actually have heard that some people have used deep fakes to strengthen fake online personas. So they've used it to kind of like solidify a fake online persona. You can also blend images of people together already to kind of make a new person. AI, there's this one website, like This Person Does Not Exist. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it uses AI technology to completely make a person who does not exist, and it looks 1000% real. And there is a digital influencer, an influencer that does not exist, who has already done modeling for big fashion companies and who has a bunch of followers and is getting sponsorships. So you say it sounds Black Mirror, but I'm like, yeah, this is it. Yeah. Because then if you get that persona up to a certain point, and you don't want to put the work in anymore, to be dealing with everybody for these shoots, and because obviously it's going to be complicated because this person isn't real. You can then buy those personas, buy their Instagram, buy their and because start following other people and go, hey, this is me. Scary thought. It's kind of like catfish, but instead of just using a real person, you're just using a made up person. Yeah. By blending a couple of photos together. Scary. Very scary thought. Very scary thought. It's very scary. Yeah. Because you know very well from like in places like Discord especially, people don't like having a profile picture.
Yeah, they don't.
Or a genuine one. They'll use anime characters, or they'll use, whatever, some sort of avatar.
Yeah.
And then if they could buy, is it that they just want to be like that? Or is it that they don't like their appearance? Is it that they don't want to dox themselves? Or then they could buy another personality of somebody that doesn't exist and just become them online.
Yeah, a lot of reasons. And it's interesting that you bring up the Discord profile picture, because, before I started streaming, of course I played World of Warcraft and stuff. I was in a bunch of different guilds. I would never put up a photo of myself. I would never put up a profile picture because I felt that, being a woman, like saying like, hey, I'm a woman, like everything that would come with that, the baggage, either being hit on or being like, oh, she's trying to show that she's a woman so she could get special treatment, or like, even just something as simple as putting up a profile photo. Yeah, it comes with a lot of baggage.
There's still a lot of assholes in gaming that are just like, they find out a woman's playing with them and they just
get weird.
Some of them, I've heard some of them and what they sound like, and it's like, these aren't even kids.
Yeah,
these are men. Grown men, fully grown men trolling a woman because she's playing games.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that, if you play games and you're a man, isn't that your dream woman? Like,
yeah.
Like, that's not a good way of finding somebody you have things in common with, is it?
No, not at all.
It really does blow my mind, especially like, it's funny because I was talking to this, to one of the team members the other day, saying, hey, when I was a kid, actually, I remember my friend's sister, a couple of doors down, we'd all play games together. Me and my friend, his sister would play, and she was sort of seen as very different at school because she played games and the other girls did not. Because we're talking early 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, there were girls playing games for sure, but it was nowhere near as common.
Yeah.
It was kind of seen as a bit weird, like, and she wanted to play football as well, and it was just seen as so strange back then. So we've come a long way like that. Most people accept that girls play games because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But then there are still people, oh, it's a woman, and just jump all over that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely nuts. And, of course we've seen it not just with, gaming in general. We've seen it on Twitch very recently. Twitch has become, I mean, the stuff that's going on with being a female streamer, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And like you said, it doesn't make sense, right? Because isn't that like, for some men, your dream woman, right? So why go and make their life difficult? And wouldn't you want more women to play, right? Wouldn't you want more women to play so that you have more women that maybe have things in common with you? Like, I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy. It's just strange.
Yeah. What do you think about, if we get as far as, like, we've discussed this a little bit before, and we get as far as, women in esports, through some research that I've done, men apparently have the edge on reaction times. Now that doesn't play into other parts, obviously, like intelligence, and all that kind of thing. There are trends for men and women to be more intelligent in different things, but on the whole, it's pretty tight. But reaction times is a thing, and I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. But I don't know how much of that is a cultivated thing, because they're more likely to have grown up playing games. They're more likely to have grown up to play more sports. They're more likely. I don't know if it's that or whether it is just one of those biological things. Yeah. But I thought that's interesting, and probably something we'll learn more about in the future when the esports become bigger. Obviously, it's a male-dominated field anyway.
Yeah, certainly.
So I wonder if one day we will have, these top esports events will have different factions. We'll have male and female. If these prove, again, this is just one thing. We're talking about reaction speed. Yeah. Which is only one part anyway. Not because you have to play. You got to be intelligent. You got to be intelligent. and as many, and have other attributes as well, which seem to be pretty similar. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, whether it becomes a big deal, because obviously if we keep the same, and it did, let's just say hypothetically, it did just end up being dominated by men, as more women play, we would then have separate classes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the arenas where, the trans community would be most welcome, and where women and men, you wouldn't really need to separate them out, because like you said, reaction time is one thing, but there's also spatial reasoning. Yeah. There's also planning. I mean, there's so much that goes into it.
Yes, of course.
I do think there are a lot of reasons why it's male dominated, and why men might have an advantage in some ways. For one, like you said, they've grown up playing it. It's more culturally accepted. Women are also less likely to kind of pursue careers in general, not just careers like that, but they're more likely to put things on pause or put things on hold, or basically stay home, watch the children, child rearing, stuff like that. So I think that's interesting. You don't really see a lot of women, pursuing anything long term. And fascinating enough, I've noticed on Twitch in particular, I've met far more women who are not interested in having children than anywhere else. Like I don't know anybody in real life who's not interested in having children. And several of my friends on Twitch are not going to have children. And, that makes you wonder if there's some kind of like correlation there, right? Where maybe women who are more likely to play esports and more likely to play video games and Twitch, maybe they are more likely to indulge themselves or do things they want for themselves. Whereas growing up, women are very much taught, self-sacrifice. You do this. This is what you do. This is how women are. So yeah, I'm very interested to see if, as we kind of break away from the cultural stereotypes and how we raise women, if there will be a lot more women in esports and a lot more women doing things that they enjoy and doing things for themselves, as opposed to what we've been raised to believe that this is what you do, because I've even heard women give reasons for having children as, well, that's just what you do, And
I've heard that before. That's just the way it is. Like, well, I'm not thinking, well, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But, it's certainly interesting. I wonder if we would have issues though if it became that way. Whether it, because the male female thing is having issues in itself. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult subject. I wonder if as well the reason for these, like you say, there's more people on Twitch that you tend to find, and these is just opinions of ours, obviously, who are less likely to have kids or not particularly bothered about having kids. I agree with you on that. I think again, personal opinion, I think there's a much bigger trans community, gay community, the LGBTQIA plus in general community on Twitch and around the community than you would find in everyday life.
Yeah. Because
I believe the figure for trans people to be something like less than 1%. Whereas I know even in the Mario Maker community, it must be 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
Like it's so much bigger. And again, no problem with that. But is that because Twitch is seen as a place where people can be a bit different? And on the whole, most people are accepting on Twitch because is that maybe because like we know what it's like to feel very passionate about something. And if we see people share that same passion, so it sort of takes all the other stuff out of it, the stuff that shouldn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Race, gender, whatever. On the whole, I feel it is a lot like that. Obviously, there's a couple of assholes that try and spoil it for everybody. Going back to what you said, I think that's probably why, because maybe if there are a lot of women around you who are like, oh, when are you going to have a baby, blah, blah, blah. And your mum stayed at home and had kids and her mum's and your grandma stayed at home and had kids and your great grandma. And there are people, it can be a bit of a refuge, I guess, for people who are normally in their normal everyday life, hang around people who don't quite understand them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or are less
absolutely
open to different ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for a lot of women, all it takes is one woman to say, I'm not having kids. And then they're like, wait, that's an option. I can do that, you know?
Yeah.
So, I could very much see women kind of like gathering, into these little subcultures and kind of finding websites where they can speak freely and be more free about stuff like that. And probably having an influence on the women around them as well, you know, because playing games is seen as, even now, it's seen as very indulgent, very, you know, unnecessary. Like, we know gamers get a lot of shit, right? Like, anytime anything happens, the media is like, it's them video games, you know, and so, yeah, I could see it as kind of like this safe space to actually be who you are and indulge yourself and follow things you actually want to do something for yourself, which unfortunately a lot of women don't get. And then, you know, on the flip side of that, men get to have more of a voice. Whereas, like, you know, in the daily life, how many men actually like, I don't want to say talk that much, but speak freely about some of their emotions and stuff. You know, Twitch can provide a place for that, you know? So yeah, I do see people maybe being able to find things that they can't find in real life.
I guess there's a lot of women who want that life as well. Cause I guess, again, going back to natural instincts, but it's not everybody. But then you think, well, little girls are cultivated in a certain way as well because they're given dolls. And of course, a lot of these girls love playing with dolls, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But they're given dolls, walking them around in pushchairs. They're given sets where they can cook, you know, pretend to cook, and all that sort of stuff. And the kids are given, you know, either like they'll be given action men or like policemen, firefighters, fire trucks, tractors.
Yeah,
jobs,
they always got the cool stuff. As I said,
jobs all surrounds, like a lot of it surrounds work.
Yeah.
Like I used fire engines. I was obsessed with fire engines when I was a kid, and trains and train drivers. We definitely cultivate that, but is that because we've always cultivated that way, or is that because just in general, that's what little boys like and that's what little girls like? Because these days you kind of think, well, it has to be true to a certain extent. You know, it's a stereotype, of course.
Yeah.
But you know, the stereotypes exist for a reason. But would it be as obvious if kids were just left to their own devices and able to pick from day one? I'm not sure it would be.
Yeah. I don't think it would be. To be honest, like if you had children completely blank slates who are not influenced by our culture at all, I think they would just pick a toy that they like. And it would like I think you would see an even distribution across the board of just, there would be no leaning on a female side or leaning on a male side. I think it would just be like very even distribution. And you know, it is annoying. And I think that it kind of reminds me of colors, right? Like a lot of people say, oh, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. Whereas back in the day, pink was actually for men. So like, you know, and I don't personally believe anybody like came down from the sky and said like, oh, like these are the colors and these are the genders they go with. And I think the same of toys, you know, I don't think they like fire trucks. Why would a male be more interested in fire trucks if not for what society told us about fire trucks? Oh, they're cool, they're heroes, they're manly, you know, there's so many associated. They're men. They're men. Big, they hold their feelings in and they cry on the inside. But and growing up, I certainly, and maybe that's a correlation with female gamers as well, or females who don't have children kind of living an alternate path. You know, growing up, I definitely did not prefer the female toys, or particularly the male toys. I preferred the more creative stuff, like anything creative. Like I had this Lego Movie Maker set, and it like if I can ever find the video, I'll share it with everyone. But like I made this dinosaur video where this dinosaur was lighting the whole city on fire, and you know, like very Jurassic Park. You know, like he was wreaking havoc and. You know, like it was like stop motion. Awesome, it was very impressive. It was really cool until my mom came home because my dad and I had lit the carpet on fire.
Oh no!
I wanted my dinosaur to breathe fire, so we got like hairspray and a lighter because my dad was definitely like,
"Whoa, you got hairspray and a lighter." Okay.
We did. It was a really good video, though. It was a really good video. I still feel bad about that cat, though. I still feel bad about that cat because I had the dinosaur and the cat was like, no. But yeah, it was very intense, very Michael Bay. But yeah, you know, I didn't really play with the typical stuff growing up, and I didn't see a reason why. I didn't really understand. Like when people tried to say, oh, you do this or you do that, I was like, why? You know, I was always very questioning child. And I wonder if that is very common in more women on Twitch, you know, or more women who are doing their own thing, is questioning that why. I think that's what I want to see more people adopt, that question of why.
See, I actually have a personal experience of the toy thing. Thinking about, I completely forgotten about this. You know, like you make lists for Christmas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I remember being in the living room with my mom and going through like catalogs of like toys. And like saying, you know, what you like and what you don't like. And we used to have this thing. I don't know if they had them in the States, but they were called Sylvanian families.
No, I don't know what that is.
They're basically like tiny little animals with like human-like features. They were actually really expensive. Like mainly like furry creatures. And they had like windmills and they had like, yeah, you should Google it. It's like,
I'm Googling. I'm like, what on earth?
As like SYLVAN.
They're so cute. Yeah. Oh my Lord. They're adorable.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like I remember like friends that were girls having these and like, I was thinking these are pretty cool because it's just like little animals and I liked animals.
Yeah.
And I liked like you could build like villages and stuff. Like you could get like windmills and little houses and stuff. And it was the building element. And I remember looking at mum and saying, oh, I quite like these Sylvanian families. And my mum was like, oh, you know, are you sure? Like, she didn't, if I wanted, like, she would have never said no. But then I sort of questioned it a bit. And obviously I realized it was in the girls section of the catalog with, you know, you turn another page and it was dolls. And so I never had any Sylvanian families. Maybe I'll start, but I mean, I say I'll start buying them. They're super expensive now. Like,
I found like a Chihuahua family and I'm like, yeah,
exactly.
Maybe those can make their way into my stream setup, but they're so friggin' cute. But yeah, the funny thing is like you wanted them and you didn't really think much beyond that other than those are cool. I want them until you realized, until society basically said, no, that's like a female toy.
That's the thing. I think I kind of knew that they were aimed at girls because obviously it was only really girls that had them that I knew. So I was trying to I remember trying to justify it to because I must have been about, I don't know, 7, maybe 8. I must have been 8 because it's like when I just come back from the States. Yeah. I remember trying to justify in my head like why it was fine. It's not something I kept with me and really bothered me because like I had plenty of stuff. Like it wasn't like, and I had whatever I needed, but it's just one of those weird things I just thought about that I at that age, completely unaware, I'm trying to justify in my own head whether it's okay or not, or why this is a gender specific toy. Yeah.
And I think that sticks with you too, right? Like it makes its way into your developmental processes and the way you see the world and stuff.
Yeah, of course. But it was, I guess there must be people who are, and you know, particularly people who are, you know, who are trans without really knowing it at that age or whatever, or have different interests, or just simply have more feminine interests. Because I didn't really. That's the closest that I came. And to be fair, there was a lot of it that wasn't particularly feminine anyway. Yeah. You know, in the classic sense of what society sees. But yeah, it's just strange that you can have these sort of thoughts without even really thinking about it from a very young age. And you probably forget most. My memory's pretty sharp, but like you probably forget most of these thoughts. And if that was an intense thing that happened all the time, that could really shape your personality and give you problems, in fact. That would be really deep-seated because you'd have been thinking about them for so long without even realizing.
I think we finally discovered where incel hate comes from. They could never have the Sylvanian family. I'm kidding.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
The jealousy. I'm jealous I didn't have one. I'm jealous I didn't have one. I want the Chihuahua families.
I don't know if they were a thing in the States. It might just be an English thing. I think they might have been.
They're so cute, though.
I think they might have even been British made as well.
Yeah. Oh, the hedgehogs are kind of terrifying, but everything else is really cute. I don't know if I'd fuck with the hedgehogs, but yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because we learn from such a young age, male versus female, right? Even to our nurseries, like you have the gender reveal parties in the nurseries, and it would be fascinating if we weren't raised in that way, who we would be.
Yeah, it's funny as well because the gender thing means so little there as well. And when you think about it, like girls, when you get a little bit older and you could come like 10, 11, 12, girls hit puberty before boys do. Mm-hmm. And, there's a point where probably physically a lot of them, a much higher percentage of girls are stronger simply because they've grown.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because it's at that point, that's all and that's completely counter to everything you've been taught by society.
Yeah.
Because suddenly I can remember the girls getting tall all of a sudden. Like before all the guys did, or taller. I can remember them growing. I can remember them the girls are wearing bras, which is a strange thing in itself. Because they're giving bras to kids who are like ridiculous ages and like saying you need to wear. Just like, is that really necessary? Which is a strange thing, and obviously I have very little understanding of that. But like from my perspective, it's like you could just see, because we used to wear these polo shirts, so you could see girls are wearing bras, right? Because it makes it clear as day. You can't avoid see straight through. Like with the tops we wore are white, or if you're wearing a shirt. So but the thing about it is you notice that these girls are then growing up before all the guys are, and they are having more mature thoughts and, just about stuff in general before the guys are, which is counterintuitive at that age because all you've known is a male dominated society.
Yeah.
Really odd that happens even through that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of food for thought. I think that this is probably my favorite episode because it delves into really interesting topics, and it's something that, is really important to me and seems to be, we're at a very important time, especially with Twitch and the internet and all of that, where we could either see women finding more freedom online and having more of a voice online, or just, again, being kind of pushed out and being oppressed. And so I think what we do now is very important.
I mean like how we exactly share that message, I don't know, but if you because we've seen TERFs that are trying to send messages, and it's like that's just gonna push people away. We see men being incels, and when I think the message is just like, hey, look, we're different. Biologically, we're different, but we can't we just all do whatever we like to do?
Yeah.
And not bother anyone else. Don't let it bother anyone else. And there are plenty of women who quite like being, sometimes just because of the way that they've been shaped, probably. But sometimes I think some women genuinely just like doing that classic role. And of course, some people will like that because everybody's different. Everybody likes different things, and that's fine. Yeah. But like, let's just have a think about, I guess, our generation and our kids. Well, I don't think we're having them, are we?
No,
but
I'm not. Anyways, my uterus is gone. Got rid of that.
It's gone. And I don't know. I'm not thinking about it right now, and I'm like, I never say never, but like, I guess it would be about trying to look out for what that child was, really wanted to do with themselves.
Yeah.
For everything, I guess. But yeah, a lot of important things discussed today. I think we're gonna have to wrap it up there. Nick, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for listening. This is very important. So let us know what you think.
Tell us what you think. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Thanks again for listening. As always, we really appreciate having you here. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to turn on notifications so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see more of Nic and Joe, check out our socials, which you can find in the show notes, and stop by our Twitch channels next time we're live. We'd love to say hi to you. But for now, it's goodbye from the both of us, and we'll see you next week.